Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Material Matters with Grant Gibson. That's me. This is the podcast where I talk to a designer, maker, artist or architect about a material or technique with which they're intrinsically linked and discover how it changed their life and career. Think of it as a bit like Desert Island Discs, but with materials instead of music. My guest today is the fabulous Leah Jensen. Leah made her name as a ceramic artist, creating vessels with extraordinarily detailed geometric surface finishes. In 2020, though, her life took a turn when she was diagnosed with brain cancer, having an operation to remove the tumour. During her recovery, she picked up a needle and thread and kept an embroidery record of everything that happened to her relationships and her emotions. The Brain Tumour Book was presented as an exhibition last month by Gallery Cavaliero Finn at the Fitzrovia Chapel in central London. Artworks were on sale with proceeds going to the Brain Tumour charity. Having visited a couple of times, I think it's safe to say that it's one of the most deeply personal, emotionally draining and genuinely heart-rending shows I've ever seen. Leah, thank you very much for doing this. I mean, I ask this of all my guests, but this question I guess is particularly pertinent for you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm pretty tired. The exhibition was quite a lot to go through. Obviously, that work's very different to what I've done in the past. So I was a bit nervous about how it was going to be received.
Because it was 2 weekends over April, right?
Yeah, that's right. Throughout that time, I did quite a lot of talks and had lots and lots of really deep, difficult and joyful conversations with lots of people that are makers, but also people that have been affected by illnesses.
And what was the most difficult question you were asked?
I think a lot of people asked me if my personality has changed since being ill. That was something that I was really worried about. It's difficult to know. All my friends and family tell me I haven't changed, but who knows? well, we'll find out during the course of this interview, maybe. I mean, we have a tradition dating back 7 years now of asking guests to describe their studio or workshop, the idea being that we can learn a little about you from your working environment. I know that you're based in Cockpit in Deptford, but I'm guessing, because we're talking on a Sunday, I'm guessing that's not where you are today, right? No, I'm from my home today, which is in southeast London. Not too far from the studio. I can walk there in about half an hour. Okay.
Well, maybe let's cheat.
Yeah.
Let's cheat. Describe your Cockpit Deptford studio a little bit for us.
Yeah, I absolutely love being there. I've been there for probably about 10 years. I moved out when I got ill, but it's just this building full of about 70 different small businesses, craft businesses. And you find everything from woodwork, leatherwork, weaving, ceramics. Yeah, I really love being there.
Yeah.
I share my room with one other person. It's not loads of space, but I don't really need that much space. And then I do textiles at home because keeping textiles clean around clay isn't that possible.
No, this is true. So clay in the studio and the textiles at home.
Yeah, and then woodwork in the garden.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out where to start this interview, really, Leah, because there are so many things to unpick. I suspect the best place is with the material that brought you to wider attention initially, and that's clay. Can we talk about how you work and how you make the pieces that you do? Because it involves Renaissance art and geometry.
Yeah. So this project started in the last year of my degree. So I studied contemporary craft rather than ceramics.
Right. At Falmouth, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I did wood, metal, plastics, ceramics and glass. We were encouraged to bring in any other materials that we thought might go well. We also did a bit of jesmonite and different things like this. We had done a project with Plymouth Museum to make some work in response to their China collection. And within that collection, I got really fascinated in looking at porcelain, more specifically as a material and what it was made up of. So I was looking at it under microscope, all the different platelets. And then I started to carve that, and it was all very geometric. And that was the first collection. I was also doing wood turning at that time. So I was pairing it with wood and burning the wood so that the porcelain really popped out against it.
Right. So can we talk about your process now? Because it involves almost plastering a Renaissance painting on a vessel. How does that work?
So I always hand build pots, and that really came from after uni not having access to a lot of machinery.
Right. So there's no wheel, in other words, in your process?
No wheel. Just because of access, that's how it started. But because of the way that the pots look quite mechanically manufactured, I think them being hand built has become quite important to preserving a sense of the handmade. There's a bit of wonkiness to them, which I think is good when they look almost like they're 3D printed. I coil build them, and then once they're at a stage of leather hard, it's quite a very particular point of leather hard. When I'm talking to people that don't do ceramics, I always talk about cheese.
Right.
You don't want a brie, and you really don't want a parmesan. You want like a medium cheddar.
Okay.
So it's really easy to cut, but also it's keeping its shape. It's not crumbling.
Okay. So medium cheddar is perfect to carve into. Is this what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
So then I take one painting, printed images of a painting, and repeat it around the pot. Then I use pins to map out the composition. When I'm explaining this, I always say it's a bit like making it into a dot to dot, a complicated dot to dot. So it breaks that down into a series of geometric shapes. And then I take all that away, and then the pinholes are left become the points that I carve from. Humans are really bad at creating random patterns. It's more challenging than you would think. So it forces a randomness to the pattern and forces my skill to improve, because I'm doing things that are trickier than I would do without having the pattern dictated to me. And depending on what painting I choose, it creates interesting intervals in the detail. So some bits go really tiny, and then other bits go where the detail goes more sparse, often where there's big areas of background or large areas of skin.
So why Renaissance paintings in the first place?
When I started carving the pots, I happened to be reading a book that was talking about geometry and maths used in the Renaissance that transformed it and allowed them to create a sense of perspective and proportion. And something happened with all those ideas that this idea surfaced. I can't specifically remember what it was. It just seemed to make sense at the time. And I've always been really fascinated by that era of painting because of the kind of mystery and the different ways that different paintings can be interpreted. I really wanted an excuse to look into it more.
How do you nowadays go about choosing the specific paintings that you choose to use? Are there things that you're looking for in a painting?
Sometimes it really depends on the occasion. So sometimes it will be one that I've seen in a gallery, so the National Portrait or the V&A or something. And that's nice because you really get to go and look it up close and think about where you're going to make the points. Other times I'll just really like the painting, or maybe I think the composition's really interesting. Some of those paintings have such a flow to the way that your eye moves.
And I'm intrigued, what tools do you use, Leah? Because presumably you're carving with a scalpel.
Yeah.
But then the rest of it doesn't sound like you need very much at all to create what you create.
No, it's really, really basic. So just a metal kidney for smoothing it, a potter's knife, a scalpel, and then I have a little paintbrush that I use to dust all the clay crumbs off from the carving. Sometimes a sponge, that's pretty much it really. And the kiln, of course.
Mm. I mean, it's interesting because you've alluded to it a little bit already, but having done some research on you, it transpires that people often think your pieces are made digitally, which I have to confess had never crossed my mind. I mean, it reminds me much more of Islamic art, if anything, but I guess that's because the surface is so complicated. People presume that it must be made by a machine of some description. Is that irritating? Because you've presumably spent, 100 plus hours making these things. I
find it kind of funny. I think maybe earlier on when things were being exhibited, I really struggled with how to communicate quickly to people. People have short attention spans when they're walking around an exhibition or a big art fair like New Designers or something. And that's really why I started making videos, to show that it was handmade. And then I was kind of calling it anti-digital as a way to grab people's attention and create some interest. What does she mean, anti-digital? What's that about? And do you find the process of making these extraordinary pots, is it very meditative for you? Yeah, completely. I've just got a habit of making really detailed things, and it's all about escapism. And I started doing that at a really young age too. It was just my escape, and it always has been. And I feel like, thinking about it over the years, I've purposely made things incredibly detailed and really difficult, because the longer things take, the longer I'll be distracted and can just get lost in creativity.
Which begs the question, I mean, obviously we're going to come on to something that you did need to escape from, but what other things have you needed to escape from in your life previously, I wonder?
Well, I had a fairly turbulent childhood. My mum is amazing, but there were a lot of difficult things going on. And she really taught me so many creative skills growing up. And we would go into the library was a really, really big part of my childhood and my brother's childhood. So every other week we would go to the library and get a big stack of books. We would learn different crafts and make things together. And these were really, really joyful times. And that really taught me that that was something I could always go back to if I was ever feeling rubbish or if there was ever anything going on that was challenging. And that's really what I've always done.
So you have this burgeoning profile in the art world. You're represented by a leading gallery in Cavaliero Finn. You've shown work at Collect, the Crafts Council's high-end fair, at Design Miami, at Home of Favour in Venice, the British Ceramics Biennale in Stoke. But you're still working other jobs. And you're working in a bar one day in 2020 and something happens. You thought you had a migraine, but, well, maybe you pick up the story. Well, what happened to you, Leah?
Yeah, so it was in between the lockdowns and that weird point where things were sort of coming back, but still a bit separated, lots of sterilising going on. Yeah, I started to have what I thought was a migraine, and then I started to experience lots of visual problems. So things sort of looked pixelated. And then I lost the ability to read. So I was looking at these shapes and wondering what it meant. And I was kind of giggling because it was just a really weird thing. And then I realized that I couldn't understand what people were saying to me. It was like they were just making weird sounds and then I couldn't speak.
And this is all going on in the bar, presumably in a very short period of time.
Yeah. I mean, the headache had been getting worse and worse, but what I now know was a seizure. I have no idea how long it was, but I don't think it went on very long. If I'd been at home, I probably would have slept it off. But my manager called an ambulance. The whole way to the hospital, I was feeling embarrassed. There was a big drama over nothing. And I should probably I felt really embarrassed.
Yeah, you told Cornwall Live that you felt mortified. And, I wondered why.
Yeah, I was just like, oh God, this is so embarrassing. They've got better things to be doing than picking up someone with a headache.
So it's important to point out, as you mentioned, that this is during COVID. So it's not an easy time for anybody, but it's not an easy time for A&E. So you got to A&E.
Yeah.
And what happens then?
It was a really, really long wait. Because it was COVID, my partner couldn't come in with me, so he waited outside the whole time. It was September, it was pretty cold. I kept on trying to leave because it was taking so long, and he kept on making me go back in. And then I think maybe about 6 hours in, they looked at me and they said, oh, you're only 30. We think you might have had a stroke, but we're not sure. And then they were kind of discussing whether to scan me. They eventually did, and I got taken up to a ward. And then that was like late evening. And then at about 3 a.m, a doctor came into the ward and said, oh, we think you've got a brain tumour.
What was your initial reaction to that news?
To be honest, it all just felt quite bizarre. I didn't feel shock. I didn't sleep. I was just kind of thinking everything through. And then, like I mentioned before, I think my sort of defence mechanism kicked in and I thought, well, I need to start making something. I'd kind of already worked out that if this was going to get really bad, if it is a brain tumour, I'm not going to be able to use clay in bed. So that's not an option. We're going to have to move on to something else. And years before, like 20 years now ago, I'd made a fabric sketchbook in college for a life drawing module. And that was something that I'd always wanted to take further and play around with a little bit more. And I thought about the Louise Bourgeois quote, sewing as an act of emotional repair. And I just kind of knew that that's what I was going to do. I don't really know why, but that's what happened. I didn't have sewing stuff with me then, but I always have a little sketchbook with me. So I took out the sketchbook. So
you had your sketchbook even in hospital?
Yeah, I take a little one with me everywhere. It's more than a sketchbook though. It's a planner, a diary. It's everything all in one. So I started making notes of what was happening and I took some photos. That moment became the first 2 pages of what would be the Brain Tumour Book, which is my sort of journal, diary / sketchbook in textiles of all the things that were happening.
What was well, quite shocking really is it took 250 days before you had the tumour removed and the cancer itself was actually discovered.
Yeah.
Presumably the symptoms, don't go away during that period. You were still getting headaches?
Yeah, after that initial seizure, it's really difficult to describe, but I wasn't able to process the thoughts and my memory as well as I had normally. I had really intense brain fog and headaches, but I was well enough to sew, so I really just threw myself into that.
And were you still working and making during that period, or what was happening in your professional life?
So as soon as the seizure happened, I knew I wasn't going to be well enough to work in a pub environment. So I left the job. And then, I was just sewing, waiting for the surgery. So the surgery took ages, in part because of COVID, but also because brain tumours are really complicated. There's over 120 different types. And from a scan, it's not always that clear what type of tumour it is. They believed it was a low-grade glioma, probably, and it might cause some problems, but maybe not life-threatening.
Right. So in other words, you felt you were quite low priority at that stage?
Yeah, but it's only when they get access to the brain tumour they can analyse it and find out what it actually is.
Which is when they discovered it was cancerous, presumably?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So the tumour is removed, but it doesn't end there. There's obviously radiotherapy and chemotherapy.
Yeah.
I mean, for those of us who haven't been through this, what is that like?
I don't remember that much of it because I had really bad memory loss from brain tumours. That's a really common problem to have. My best memories are actually triggered from looking at the diary. There's a lot of things I don't remember as viscerally as when I look at this item that I spent so much time with. Radiotherapy is, I don't know, to be honest with you, the whole thing felt so surreal. And I think in part because my brain wasn't thinking clearly, everything just felt like a bit of a weird fever dream. When you go for radiotherapy, they make this cage basically that goes over your head that keeps you in place on the table. I don't know if it was my way of dealing with things, but I found just the process of them making it really fascinating. They sort of have this rubbery mesh that they put in this solution, and then they literally stretch it over your head and it molds to your head, and then it sets, and then that's your perfect face cage for you to be attached to the table. So I had 33 days of that, and then a little break, and then a year of chemo.
And the chemo you didn't take intravenously?
No, I took medicine, which was, I think it has its pros and its cons. I mean, I didn't need to go into hospital, which was good because COVID was still causing a lot of trouble, especially for people with low or affected immune systems. Yeah, taking chemo medicine isn't fun. I had a lot of sickness and felt just really, really ill. But I did have my sewing. I spent most of the time wondering what people that don't make do with all their time when they've got this much time. There's only so many films you can watch before you get kind of tired of all of that.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the fact you're sewing about your emotions and what's happening to you. Were you sewing, do you think, to remember personally? Did you have a sense that what you were doing could have a life outside of your situation?
I never intended for anyone to see the work. It was just for me. I was really enjoying being able to throw myself into a material I hadn't been able to work with for a long time because I'd been doing so much ceramics. There's a lot of experimentation in the book, and I was really just having fun with it. Also, I think because it's my nature, I redid every page until it was to a quality that I was happy with. So that first page with the writing, I think the one that made it to the book was attempt number 6. And that's just how I am.
Just remind everybody or let everybody know what the writing was on the first page.
So it's from that first morning in hospital. It says, "From my hospital bed in the morning, I watch the parakeets in the trees and think about dying." So that was in Lewisham Hospital.
I mean, it is, as you pointed out just there, it is deeply emotional. It's unflinching, and it starts with that first morning. One of the things that's striking about the book is how sanguine you are about your situation. There's another entry in the book where you have the same kind of pattern actually that you use on your pots, and buried within it is just a tiny bit of text that says, "Why am I not afraid to die?" it seems an obvious question, Leah, but were you not scared?
No, this is something I still find really difficult to get my head around. I wasn't reacting in the way that I felt like people should. I wasn't really scared. That kind of frightened me. Why wasn't I really scared? I don't know. A lot of the writing in the book's really hard to read, and that was on purpose because it was a diary. There was still some part of me that thought that someone I cared about could read this and they could be upset about it. I was sewing, my partner was like nearby all the time. There were things that I wrote in there that I was really worried about him reading because they were upsetting. That page was the first in a series that's titled The Things You Can't Say Out Loud. And they were all the things that I couldn't say out loud, partly because of shame, confusion. I didn't want other people to know.
Why were you ashamed, I wonder?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that's a really complicated thing I'm still trying to unpick.
In the 45 pages, you cover so many topics. There's a piece called Shame 1 where you write, in the MRI, as they scan my brain, and in endometriosis agony, I hope I pronounced that word right, I'm sure I didn't, I feel an intense wave of shame for all the years I hated my body.
Yeah. That one's really hard to read because I am embarrassed about it, but that's something that happened. I just felt awful. It's just like all those years you wasted, and now that you've got these two horrible conditions at once.
And there are two pieces about your father, who rather extraordinarily also had a brain injury.
Yeah.
I mean, you sewed an image of a chair that he made from you while he was in rehab.
Yeah.
I know it's not easy to talk about, but I mean, can we talk about the relationship between you and your father and what happened? It's such a disturbing and bizarre coincidence, really.
Yeah. So I have never really had a relationship with him, and that'll become clear in a second why. When I was a baby, he had a brain hemorrhage, which required emergency surgery. And then he had to go through about 6 months of rehab to relearn how to do things, in which time he made me that chair. It's a really nice chair. It's wooden and the seat part of it's woven. It's really nice. Child-sized chair. Unfortunately, all of this changed his personality and he became unsafe to be around. So knowing that I was going to have brain surgery, that was really present in my mind. What if?
When you say unsafe, Leah, how did that manifest itself?
I'm not sure I want to go into it too much.
No, fair enough.
If that's okay.
Yeah. No, that's.
Yeah, just because I don't mind talking about it, but I know that my mum will be upset.
No, that's not a problem. So there are a number of different styles going on across the book, and you talked about, your desire to experiment. In fact, you wouldn't necessarily think that the same artist was behind every piece. I mean, there's one page where you use dried rose stems, for instance. What did they signify? So
the dried rose stems are taken from some plants that my mum had sent me. So she worked at this time and for many years on a rose farm. And that felt really important to use in the book because that page specifically is about her and the difficulty of having distance between us when we were both going through a difficult time. I was going through the illness, but she was going through her child having a life-threatening illness and going through a huge operation, and her not being able to be there for me because of COVID. She wasn't able to travel and I wasn't able to be around anyone really. So that page about her, I felt like I really had to use the rose stems.
I mean, your love for your mum is obvious throughout, and your partner played an incredibly important role in your recovery.
Yeah.
And you've made, well, at least one page about him.
Yeah, of his boxes. Yeah. That page is called Romance, and it's really documenting this amazing moment between us when I got out of the hospital after the surgery. I was just intensely confused. I mean, I just had my head opened up. And he ran me a bath. I had all this blood and residue from the plasters in my hair, and he washed that out and he cut my hair so that it was more comfortable. And it was just this beautiful moment. And it was just the kindest thing that anyone could have ever done for me at that point. It just felt, I don't know, it was just beautiful.
I hope you're enjoying the show. This is just a reminder that Material Matters Copenhagen runs from the 10th to the 12th of June at Ukraine House, Gamble Dock. The event, which is part of 3 days of design, contains 19 exhibitors from across the globe, all united by their profound interest in material intelligence. Companies and organisations to look out for include the American Hardwood Export Council, which will be presenting a new immersive exhibition, Wood for the Trees. Dutch brand iFungi is back, showing furniture and lighting created from a mycelium-based composite, and the wonderful glass designer Joe Anderson returns with a new collection. Look out too for Spanish company Birdmind, which transforms rice husk waste into a wonderful new material. There's so much going on, you really have to come and see it for yourself. For more details, go to our website, materialmatters.design. That's materialmatters.design. Also, we are still looking for exhibitors for our London event in September. We have a new venue, Unlock Shoreditch, and it'll be part of Shoreditch Design Week. The building is filling up nicely, and if you're interested in taking part, email us at hello@materialmatters.design. That's hello@materialmatters.design. See you there. The entire piece, takes in, we've already discussed some very personal issues. There's a page about having your eggs collected, for instance.
Yeah. I used little bits of humour throughout the book. You said that a lot of the pages don't have the same style.
Yeah.
And I think that's intentional. Well, it is intentional because the same style doesn't work for all the different moods that are captured within this experience. Those pages are silly, talking about egg collection, because the whole thing just felt really weird. Well, like one minute I'm working in a pub just trying to, get through life, and the next minute I'm having my eggs collected. The whole thing was just really weird. So the silliness of that page reflects the kind of absurdity of how I felt about everything.
Mm. But you allude to bigger problems too. I mean, rather than the macro personal, there are kind of socioeconomic problems that are mentioned, including renting a home. Can we talk a little bit about the problems you had with being in the rental market?
This was really the most difficult part of my time while I was ill, was dealing with really horrible people. So we had to move out of one place. And then the landlord that we moved into the first flat with made a decision that essentially delayed my brain surgery, and she knew it was going to do it. It was completely avoidable, but she just didn't care. And that made us homeless during COVID. She
threw you out? What happened?
No, so we were due to move in.
Right.
And I needed to isolate as soon as we moved in, or a little time after we moved in, before having surgery because of COVID. The flat failed in its electric test, but the estate agent said, it's okay, we can get an electrician in, you can move in fine. And she said, no, I'll only go with British Gas because I don't want to ruin my relationship with them. And they didn't have anyone available to do the checks for 3 weeks. So that's what happened. Yeah, that's what happened. And then we move in and she said she needs to sell it. And she tried to get builders in. While I was having chemo, she tried to get builders in. Yeah. And she said that it wasn't planned work, but we had proof that it was. It was just like a whole host of things. Me and my partner are both from working class backgrounds. And then I was obviously on disability because of the cancer. And he was in a job that just pays London living wage. And because of these two things, we needed a guarantor that earned 45k a year and was a UK homeowner. We just don't know anybody well enough to ask that of. It was just so stressful. It just felt mad to be going through looking at dying and then having to deal with all these other things at the same time. At the time, I thought that was going to kill me. I thought, like, I can deal with the cancer, but I don't know if I can deal with it while all this other stuff's going on that's so stressful.
Oh, I'm sorry, Leah. That must have been difficult. I'm also intrigued that you use your own hair.
Yeah.
On one page. Why did you decide to do that?
I think it's just because I'd been doing so much sewing. When the hair started falling out, to me, it was just thread.
Okay.
I don't know. So I started using that. So I started sewing windows. There's windows referenced a few times throughout the diary.
Yes, there's a lot of windows in there.
Yeah.
This is because you're stuck indoors, presumably.
Yeah, exactly.
So the hair was just a practical, I'm losing my hair, I may as well do something with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's an absolute nightmare to work with, but it looks quite nice. So worth it maybe.
I mean, gosh, we talked about the housing, but perhaps one of the more interesting aspects that you touch upon in the book is the nature of friendship. There's a page entitled Fairweather Fathers.
Yeah.
What is that about, Leah?
That is lots and lots and lots and lots of feelings condensed into the smallest phrase that I could manage that I felt like might have communicated the ideas. So when you're essentially looking at the idea of maybe dying, you expect people that you haven't connected with, like a father figure, for example, to maybe get in contact. And then when they don't, it's a weird combination of closure, but also disappointment. It's like, oh, well, if it's not now, then it's probably never.
So is that aimed at your father in particular, or the nature of friendship in general?
The nature of friendship in general, but a father figure.
Right.
Perhaps. Yeah. No, a father figure.
Right.
Yeah, not my actual dad.
Not your dad. Okay. I mean, as part of the exhibition, there are these 3 pots, which were at the end of the extraordinary chapel. And if nobody's ever been, you should really get the chance to go to Fitzrovia Chapel. It's an amazing, unexpected space. There's the last pot you made before undergoing surgery, when I guess, you must have thought there was a chance I'm not going to survive, or if I do survive, I'm not going to be able to work again.
Yeah.
The first pot you made after your recovery, do you refer to it as recovery?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I do.
Good. Then there's the mystery pot, which is this huge and impressive piece of work, but it has a very particular story behind it.
Yeah. So when I moved back into cockpit, I was unpacking my things and I found this pot. I mean, it's definitely made by me, but I have absolutely no memory of making it. I don't even remember where I made it. It's intensely frustrating.
Yeah, it must be.
Yeah. Normally also, as I'm making these pots, because of the pattern mapping process, I record that extensively on lots of devices. I take loads of photos of it. There was absolutely zero evidence of that happening, which is really not normal. Even more annoyingly, it's, I think, the best pot I've ever made. I absolutely love it. And I'm never happy with my work. Yeah,
it's a really good piece of work. There's no question. I mean, that must be incredibly disconcerting to have this large piece of work that you have no memory of at all.
Yeah, it's really annoying. I'm really good at being really positive and thinking forward and looking on the bright side and just putting things completely out of my mind. But along the way, I've had things that have showed me that I was actually very ill, even though I didn't always feel that ill, or I was good at forgetting that I felt really ill. And one of them was finding that pot. That would have taken me probably 150 hours plus to make. And to not have any memory of that is just kind of mind-blowing. I must have been really ill when I made it.
You must have been. I mean, have you done detective work about it and worked out where and how you must have done it?
I've been trying everything I can to work out what it is, and I can't find anything. I've looked at all my friends' devices. I've asked them to look for pictures. My partner, every device I own, nothing. The only picture I have is of it coming out of a kiln, which doesn't give me the key information. No,
it's fascinating. And the loss of memory, how does that affect you on a day-to-day basis, Leah?
It's horrific. It's annoying day to day because it affects how you do everything. Forgetting little things during the day just makes everything take so much longer. But more than that, I've got short and long-term memory loss. And that means that I've kind of lost my own context. I don't have reliable memories for who I was or the things that I've done or the things that I've shared with people. And that's intensely difficult. And that's something I'm still trying to work out how to manage.
How are you managing it at the moment? I mean, particularly, I guess, the short term, do you have to write everything down, or do you have techniques increasingly?
Yeah, I'm a problem solver. I enjoy problem solving. So I do have lots of different techniques for remembering things. Sometimes it's leaving an odd object somewhere to remind me to do something. Or I do lots of like post-it notes and my nemesis, they're everywhere. But the really, really small things, like where you've put something, you don't end up problem solving or finding a solution to remembering that, because it's just, these things happen too often for you to problem solve that, if that makes sense.
And with the long term, how are you dealing with that? I mean, is your mum reminding you of your childhood, or family members, friends? How does that work for you?
I haven't really worked that out yet. I think, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be recovered. I've started keeping notes of things that happen to hopefully try and I don't know how to put it. Yeah, no, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. As well as your memory, the chemo had the effect of changing your diet.
Yeah.
According to one piece that you wrote, that you sewed, and made you very sensitive to salt.
Yeah.
Is that still the case, or has your diet changed irrevocably now?
No, it was fine. It took a little while, but it's fine. The piece with the piece of toast on is really about the idea of how you'd behave when you get ill and the reality. I think before I got ill, I assumed that if I got cancer, I would buy a juicer and stop eating crisps and go on long walks in fresh air and eat a raw vegan diet. And then the reality is you're just so exhausted and you feel so rubbish. I just kind of wanted comfort. And what I wanted was a big piece of toast with lots of butter on. But then I developed this sensitivity to salt, so that wasn't going to happen. But yeah, I eat completely normally now and I love food.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. I mean, tell me, is it a strange thing putting what was a very personal project out into the public domain?
Oh yeah, absolutely. As I said, this was never anything that I expected anyone to see or wanted anyone to see. But my gallery, Cavaliero Finn, they're amazing. They've been so supportive of me through this. So they sold my ceramics before I got ill and kept in close contact and sent me this lovely care package when I got ill. They asked me what I'd been doing and I told them, and then I showed them and they said, oh, people have to see this. So from that moment to when the exhibition opened was well over a year. So I had a long time to think about that. And I think it was only with time that I could get used to people seeing my diary.
Yeah. And have you been surprised by the response? Because I was at your opening and there were people kind of openly weeping.
Yeah, I'm completely blown away by it, to be honest. I was really worried about how it would come across, especially because my ceramics isn't personal. There's nothing personal about my ceramics, really. And this is such a different body of work. I was really nervous and I've been completely blown away by it.
It's a cliche question, Leah, but unfortunately it's one of those ones as a journalist you have to ask, which is, whether this whole experience has given you a different perspective on life.
I'm not sure it has.
Well, that's fine. It's kind of good to know.
I was brought up pretty tough, and I think, I don't know, I've never been the kind of like, oh, why is this happening to me sort of person. And I had lots of challenging times in the past. So I think it was just kind of and it might be a bit naff to say, but I really just threw myself into creativity and that's how I coped. And it's just one of those things that's happened. The memory is really, really difficult. The fatigue's really difficult, but I do more than anything feel really lucky. Like I had amazing care and I had the best support network around me and I just sat and made for a long time. So although I was looking at a 13% chance of survival 5 years after diagnosis, which is the statistic.
Yes, which must be incredibly scary.
Yeah.
Because you've got this thing hanging over you for, well, I mean, it's 5 years, but as you point out, cancer doesn't have a clock, right?
No, exactly. It's So although that was happening, I'm really good at just not thinking about things and just getting on with it. Not that it wasn't intensely difficult, it was. But yeah, I mean, what can you do? I really try not to worry about things too much that I don't have any control over.
And has it changed your work? You're still sewing now, presumably?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's changed my work. I've always made in lots of different materials, and I've never seen what I do as... I think a lot of makers separate materials, but I've never really seen making like that. I'm excited to get the opportunity to do things that aren't clay more.
Right.
So with the British Ceramics Biennial, I used a bit of textiles within that. And that was because I'd been doing so much of it. I'll still definitely make the same pots, and I'm excited to get back to developing that in different directions. But I'm also excited to do things in lots of different materials. That's sort of how I develop ideas. So I have a big sketchbook where I have lots of different projects in development within a sketchbook, and they kind of develop over years. And when I learn different things, I think about how I might incorporate that in different ideas. So the work for BCB, that idea probably started about 7 years before I actually made it.
We are coming to the end of our time. I mean, obviously, you've had the exhibition at the Fitzrovia Chapel last month. You're still working. Are you back in the bar that you used to be in?
No, I realised that I wasn't going to have the sort of health for doing that kind of work again. So having sporadic hours and rushing about, I don't have the stamina for that anymore. Also, I'm in my mid-30s now. It's I don't want to do that forever.
No, fair enough.
But I do work Monday to Thursday. I'm still working quite a lot.
What do you do?
I'm an artist assistant.
Okay.
And also I work in a shop that sells wool.
Okay.
Like a knitting shop. It's lovely.
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah. So besides the wool shop and being the artist assistant, doing what you do, what are your plans for the future, Leah?
So we would really like to take the Brain Tumour Book on an exhibition tour. We're just looking for some venues and some funding for that. And then maybe looking at making a book from the book.
Very good.
So that more people can see it.
Yeah. A book from the book. And tell me, people can buy prints and the proceeds go to the Brain Tumour charity, right?
Yeah, sure. And we're not selling pages from the book, but they can be commissioned.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. So now everybody knows. And I will give people a link. There's a link that people can go to, which I will give them. So Leah, I really, really appreciate taking time on a Sunday to talk to me particularly and to talk about, some important and I know, some of it difficult personal stuff. So I thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
There is still time to donate to Leah's fundraising page for the Brain Tumour charity. I'll add the link in the show notes. And find out more about Leah's work at leahjensen.co.uk. You can also go to our website to hear other podcasts that I've done, to sign up to our newsletter, and to find out all about the various events we'll be running in 2026, including Material Matters Copenhagen. One more thing, it would make me incredibly happy if you went to my Patreon page and made a pledge at patreon.com/Material Matters. For as little as £3.50 a month, you can receive invites to various Material Matters events, as well as getting access to each episode before it's published to the wider world. Material Matters is a completely independent concern, and any help you can offer would be hugely appreciated. Ultimately, you'll be helping to take the message of the importance of materials, skill, craft, and design to a whole new audience. Thanks very much for listening.